Hey there, American Healthy Habits family. Quick question. Can you plant citronella and lavender around your patio and actually create a mosquito-free zone? That's what every garden blog says. Plant these herbs or these plants, and your yard becomes a mosquito-free paradise. Garden centers sell entire displays of mosquito-repelling plants. But here's what's interesting. When we look at the actual research, the scientific studies, not blog posts, not Pinterest boards, the real data, what we find is going to change how you think about mosquito control. Before I tell you whether plants work or not, you need to understand how mosquitoes actually hunt, because once you know this, you'll immediately understand why most plant advice fails. And more importantly, you'll understand what actually does work to reduce mosquitoes in your yard without constantly spraying chemicals. How mosquitoes actually hunt. Understanding the enemy. Mosquitoes don't see well. They don't hear particularly well either. What they do have is an incredibly sophisticated system for detecting warm-blooded animals from remarkable distances, and they do it primarily through chemical detection and heat sensing. Here's how mosquitoes actually find you. Their primary hunting mechanism is carbon dioxide detection. Every time you exhale, you're releasing CO2 into the air. And mosquitoes have specialized receptors that can detect these plumes of carbon dioxide from up to 150 feet away. That's half a football field. Once they detect your exhaled breath, they fly upwind toward the source. But CO2 detection is just the beginning. Once mosquitoes get within about 15 to 20 feet of you, they start using heat sensing. They have specialized receptors that detect infrared radiation from your body. Your body temperature stands out dramatically against the cooler ambient temperature, especially in the evening when mosquitoes are most active. On top of that, mosquitoes can detect chemical signatures in your sweat and on your skin. When you sweat, your body releases lactic acid, ammonia, uric acid, and dozens of other metabolic byproducts. Research has shown that people who produce higher levels of certain acids and steroids on their skin are significantly more attractive to mosquitoes. At very close range, mosquitoes also use visual cues. They're particularly attracted to movement and to dark colors. And finally, mosquitoes are attracted to moisture and humidity. The water vapor you exhale with every breath makes you more detectable. Why? This matters for plants. Now, here's why all of this matters when we're talking about plants. For a plant to repel mosquitoes in any meaningful way, it would need to do one of two things. Either it would need to mask all of these signals that make you attractive to mosquitoes, or it would need to create a stronger counter signal that actively drives mosquitoes away from the area. The plant would need to constantly emit volatile compounds in concentrations high enough to interfere with mosquito carbon dioxide detection from 150 feet away. It would need to create an aversive smell so strong and so persistent that it overrides the mosquito's attraction to your breath, your body heat, your sweat, and your movement. And it would need to do this continuously, not just when you brush against it. Does any garden plant actually do this? Let's look at what the research shows. The essential oil versus living plant problem. This is the critical distinction that most garden blogs completely ignore. Many plant essential oils absolutely do show mosquito repellent properties in laboratory settings. This is well documented in scientific literature. Citronella oil, eucalyptus oil, lemongrass oil, lavender oil, all of these have been tested in controlled studies and they show varying degrees of mosquito repellency when applied directly to skin or when tested in enclosed chambers. But here's what you need to understand about those studies. When researchers test citronella oil for mosquito repellency, they're not putting a potted citronella plant next to a test subject. What they're doing is taking essential oil that's been steam distilled from literally thousands of plants, concentrating it down to its most potent form, and then either applying it directly to human skin or releasing measured amounts of it into a controlled chamber. A living citronella plant in your garden is not producing anywhere close to that concentration of volatile oils into the surrounding air. Plants produce essential oils primarily for their own purposes, and they typically only release these compounds in higher concentrations when the plant tissue is damaged or crushed. Even when you brush against a lavender plant and release that wonderful lavender scent, that burst of fragrance dissipates within seconds in open air. Think about this logically for a moment. If lavender plants emitted enough concentrated essential oil to create a genuine mosquito repellent zone around them, then every lavender farm in the world would be completely mosquito-free. But that's not the reality. Lavender farms have mosquitoes just like everywhere else. Researchers have actually measured this. They've tested the air around various plants that are marketed as mosquito repellents and measured the concentration of volatile organic compounds in the immediate vicinity of the plants. What they've found consistently is that the concentrations are typically 100 to 1,000 times lower than what's needed to achieve mosquito repellency in controlled laboratory tests. This is the fundamental misunderstanding that the entire mosquito-repelling plant industry is built on. Essential oils work. Living plants don't work the same way. The Citronella Myth. The most popular mosquito plant that doesn't work. Let's talk about citronella plants, because if there's one plant that people are absolutely convinced repels mosquitoes, it's this one. Walk into any garden center in late spring or summer and you'll see tables full of citronella plants, often marketed with signs that say mosquito plant. People buy these by the thousands every year, convinced that they're about to create a mosquito-free zone on their patio. First, let's talk about what real citronella oil is and where it comes from. True citronella oil is extracted from two species of tropical grasses, Cymbopogon nardus and Cymbopogon winterianus. These are large perennial grasses that can grow 4 to 6 feet tall. Commercial citronella oil is produced by harvesting these grasses, chopping them up, and steam distilling them to extract the essential oils. It takes an enormous amount of plant material to produce even a small amount of essential oil. Now, citronella oil has been used as an insect repellent since the 1940s, and it does have some genuine repellent properties. When citronella oil is applied to skin or when it's burned in candles, it can provide some degree of mosquito protection. The key point here is that we're talking about concentrated extracted oil, not living plants. So what are the plants that garden centers are selling as citronella plants? Here's where it gets interesting. The plants that are sold under these names are almost never the actual grasses that produce citronella oil. What you're usually buying is a scented geranium, most commonly Pelargonium citrosum or Pelargonium graveolens. These are ornamental plants that have leaves that smell vaguely citrus-like when you crush them, which is why marketers decided to call them citronella plants. But they don't actually produce citronella oil. They produce a completely different set of aromatic compounds. Multiple scientific studies have tested whether planting these citronella-scented geraniums provides any mosquito protection. A study published in the Journal of the American Mosquito Control Association specifically tested Pelargonium citrosum plants. The researchers set up an experiment where they placed these plants near human test subjects and then measured mosquito landing rates and biting attempts. They compared this to control situations where no plants were present. The result was clear. There was no significant reduction in mosquito attraction whatsoever when these plants were present compared to when they weren't. Another study tested whether having these plants growing in gardens created any kind of repellent zone around them. Again, they found no measurable effect. Now, some people might say, well, maybe those aren't the real citronella plants. What if I actually plant the real grasses? Fair question. The answer is that even if you plant the actual citronella grasses, those living plants in your garden still don't emit enough volatile oil into the surrounding air to create a repellent effect. Remember, to make citronella oil, you have to harvest huge quantities of these grasses, chop them up, and steam distill them to concentrate the oils. So why do garden centers keep selling them? Because people keep buying them. There's no law or regulation that prevents a garden center from marketing a scented geranium as a mosquito plant. As long as they're not making specific EPA-regulated pesticide claims, they can suggest that the plant repels mosquitoes, and consumers who've read the same advice repeated across dozens of garden blogs will purchase them believing they work. Now let's talk about citronella candles, because this is where the confusion often comes from. Citronella candles do provide some mosquito protection. Studies have shown that burning citronella candles can reduce mosquito biting in the immediate area by somewhere between 40 and 50% while the candles are actively burning. But here's what's important to understand. This is not because of a plant. Citronella candles are burning concentrated citronella oil mixed into wax. When you light the candle, you're creating smoke that carries volatile compounds into the air in the immediate area around the candle. The moment you blow out the candle, the protection stops. The smoke disperses, the concentration of repellent compounds in the air drops immediately, and mosquitoes return. This is fundamentally different from the idea of planting a living citronella plant and expecting it to create some kind of permanent protective zone. The pattern with all repellent plants. Why other plants fail too. The story I just told you about citronella? It's the exact same story for every other plant that's commonly recommended for mosquito control. Lemongrass does contain citronella-like compounds. It's actually one of the sources for citronella oil extraction, but as a living plant in your garden, research shows no significant mosquito repellent effect. Lavender essential oil has mild mosquito repellent properties in laboratory tests when you use concentrated extracted oil. But a lavender plant growing in your garden doesn't emit concentrated lavender oil continuously into the air. Studies testing lavender plants in gardens show no measurable reduction in mosquito populations or biting rates. Lavender is beautiful, it attracts pollinators, plant it for those reasons. Just don't plant it expecting mosquito control. The marigold myth is persistent, but the evidence is weak. Some studies show that Tagetes oil has mild insect repellent properties, but these are laboratory studies with extracted oils, not field studies with living plants. Basil essential oils show mosquito repellent properties in laboratory settings. In gardens, living basil plants provide virtually no mosquito protection unless you're constantly crushing and rubbing the leaves. Here's one with a caveat. Burning rosemary does create mosquito repellent smoke. If you're having a fire pit or grilling, tossing rosemary sprigs onto the fire will create aromatic smoke that repels mosquitoes in the immediate area while it's burning. But a rosemary plant growing in a pot on your deck? No repellent effect on mosquitoes. Notice the pattern? Essential oils work in concentrated form. Living plants don't create protective zones around your patio. The research is remarkably consistent on this point. Plants are not the answer to mosquito control in your yard. What actually works? So if plants don't work for mosquito control, what does? Let's look at solutions that actually have strong research backing. Solution 1. Eliminate breeding sites. This is the single most effective thing you can do, and it's supported by decades of mosquito control research. One female mosquito can lay between 100 and 300 eggs every few days, throughout her lifetime. If those eggs are laid in standing water, they hatch into larvae within 24 to 48 hours. Those larvae develop into pupae, and then those pupae emerge as adult mosquitoes in 7 to 10 days. Your yard might be breeding hundreds or even thousands of mosquitoes every single week without you even realizing it. So where are mosquitoes breeding on your property? They'll breed in any standing water that remains for more than about 4 to 5 days. Clogged gutters are one of the biggest mosquito breeding sites around homes. Flower pot saucers collect water every time you water your plants or when it rains. Bird baths are mosquito factories unless you're changing the water every 2 to 3 days. Old tires, buckets, watering cans, tarps covering wood piles, kids' toys left in the yard, tire swings, tree holes, low spots in lawns that puddle after rain, ornamental ponds without circulation, kiddie pools, pet water bowls left outside. All of these breed mosquitoes if water stands for more than a few days. The solution is straightforward but requires consistent effort. You need to walk your property every week during mosquito season and dump any standing water you find. Clean your gutters, drill drainage holes in containers, change your bird bath water every 3 days. For water features you want to keep, add circulation with a fountain or aerator because mosquitoes won't breed in moving water. For water that you absolutely cannot eliminate and cannot circulate, there's a product called Mosquito Dunks that contain BTI, Bacillus thuringiensis israelensis. This is a naturally occurring bacteria that kills mosquito larvae but is completely harmless to humans, pets, fish, birds, and all other wildlife. Research from the American Mosquito Control Association shows that eliminating breeding sites can reduce mosquito populations by 80 to 90% within just a few weeks. This isn't theory, this is documented, proven mosquito control that works. Solution 2. Improve drainage. If you have low spots in your yard that hold water for days after every rain, you're creating permanent mosquito breeding habitat. Depending on how severe the drainage problem is, you might be able to fix it by regrading the area or installing a French drain. For areas where you can't solve the drainage problem, you can plant moisture-tolerant plants that will help absorb some of that water. Solution 3. Attract natural predators. Bats are incredibly effective mosquito predators. A single bat can consume up to 1,000 mosquitoes in a single night of feeding. Installing a bat house is one of the best long-term investments you can make. Bat houses need to be mounted on poles or buildings at a height of at least 12 to 15 feet in locations that get direct sun for 6 to 8 hours a day. Purple martins and swallows are aerial insectivores that consume massive quantities of flying insects, including mosquitoes. Dragonflies are another effective predator. Adult dragonflies eat mosquitoes, but what's even more important is that dragonfly nymphs, which live underwater, are voracious predators of mosquito larvae. A properly designed pond with aquatic plants and natural predators will not be a mosquito breeding ground because the predators keep the larvae in check. Solution 4. Strategic fans. This one surprises people, but it's remarkably effective. Research shows that mosquitoes are extremely weak flyers. Sustained wind speeds of just 1 to 2 miles per hour make it very difficult for mosquitoes to fly and to locate hosts. Installing ceiling fans on a covered porch or setting up oscillating fans in your outdoor seating areas creates air movement that mosquitoes simply cannot navigate through. A study published in the Journal of Medical Entomology found that fans reduced mosquito biting rates by over 60% in the areas where the fans were creating air movement. A decent outdoor fan might cost you $50 to $100. You plug it in when you're using your patio, and you immediately get 60% fewer mosquito bites. Solution 5. Timing and behavior. Most mosquito species are most active at dawn and at dusk. If you have flexibility in when you do outdoor activities, choosing to be outside during the middle of the day instead of early morning or evening will expose you to far fewer mosquitoes. When you must be outside during peak mosquito hours, wearing long sleeves and pants provides a physical barrier. Light-colored clothing is less attractive to mosquitoes than dark clothing. Solution 6. Personal repellents when needed. The most effective mosquito repellent is still DEET. It's been extensively tested, and when applied according to directions, it's safe and highly effective. Picaridin is another very effective option that's less greasy than DEET. For people who prefer a natural option, oil of lemon eucalyptus is EPA registered as a mosquito repellent and has been shown in studies to be genuinely effective. These are products you apply to your skin, and they work by making you less detectable to mosquitoes. The multi-layer approach works best. The most effective mosquito control strategy combines multiple approaches. You eliminate all standing water with weekly property walks. You install fans in your primary outdoor seating areas. You attract natural predators with bat houses or bird houses. You time your outdoor activities for midday when possible. You use personal repellents when you need to be outside during peak mosquito hours. You maintain good drainage. This layered approach can reduce your mosquito encounters by 80 to 90%. That's real, achievable, sustainable mosquito control. Your Week 1 action plan. Get started this week. Let me give you a practical first step you can take this week that will make the biggest immediate impact. Walk your entire property with a notebook. Document every place water is collecting or could collect. Check your gutters, look at every flower pot saucer, check under your deck, look for containers and toys. Identify low spots where water puddles. By the end of this survey, you should have a complete list of every mosquito breeding site on your property. Now, start eliminating them systematically. Clean your gutters so water flows freely. Dump out every flower pot saucer, every bucket, every container. Drill holes in things that need drainage. Store items that can collect water upside down or undercover. For your bird bath, either commit to changing the water every 3 days or buy a small solar fountain to keep the water moving. For any water you absolutely cannot eliminate, order mosquito dunks and apply them. This first week of action will make the biggest immediate impact on your mosquito problem. Most of the mosquitoes you're dealing with are probably being bred right on your own property, and eliminating those breeding sites will dramatically reduce mosquito numbers within about 2 weeks. The bottom line. So can you plant your way to a mosquito-free yard? The answer, based on extensive scientific research, is no. You cannot. Living plants in gardens simply do not emit mosquito repellent compounds in concentrations high enough to provide meaningful protection. The essential oils from many of these plants do show mosquito repellent properties when they're extracted, concentrated, and applied directly to skin or burned in enclosed spaces. But living plants growing in your garden are not essential oil diffusers. But here's the good news. You can create a significantly more comfortable yard with dramatically fewer mosquitoes through evidence-based environmental management. The solution is not buying plants that are marketed for mosquito control. The solution is understanding mosquito biology and addressing what mosquitoes actually need to thrive. Mosquitoes need standing water to breed, so you eliminate standing water. Mosquitoes are weak flyers, so you use fans. Mosquitoes have natural predators, so you attract those predators. This comprehensive approach works. It's backed by decades of research. It can reduce your mosquito encounters by 80 to 90%. And it doesn't require you to turn your yard into a chemical treatment zone. If this research-based approach to mosquito control has helped you understand what actually works and what doesn't, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment and let me know. What's your biggest mosquito challenge? I read every comment. Thanks so much for watching. Now go take a walk around your property, dump out some standing water, and start reclaiming your yard from mosquitoes.